Hey guys, if you were born a hyena in Africa, well, let's just say you probably wouldn't survive your first week. But don't worry, that's what we're here for. Tonight, I'm going to walk you through the entire life of a spotted hyena, from the moment you open your gummy little eyes in a dirt-packed burrow to the day you finally lie down for good under a whispering acacia tree. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. And if you're tuning in right now, post your location and local time in the comments. I always love to see where and when you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It begins in the dark, not the dramatic thunderstorm in the distance kind of dark, but a quiet, earthy, slightly too warm kind. The inside of a cramped burrow dug into the slope of a dry riverbank somewhere in the savannah. The soil is reddish and soft, the walls pressed tight with the pressure of the clan's bodies moving in and out over time. And you, newly born, wriggling and squealing, are barely the size of a football. Your eyes are sealed shut. Your fur is dark and oily, and your little legs tremble with every movement. You're not alone. There's another warm body pressed up beside you, just as blind and just as loud. That's your sibling. And whether they become your closest ally or your first opponent, well, that depends entirely on how the next few days go. Hyena cubs, you see, don't come into this world as innocent bundles of fluff. No, you are born with your teeth already poking through, tiny but sharp, and a jaw instinctively ready to clench. Evolution didn't mess around with hyenas. Within hours of birth, you and your sibling will start pushing, growling, and even biting, especially if both of you happen to be female. Why? Because hyenas live in a rigid social hierarchy where status is everything, and dominance starts before you even know your own name, or well, before you can see. The den is kept hidden from predators, but that doesn't mean it's safe. The world outside the burrow is full of things that want to eat you. Lions, leopards, snakes, even other hyenas from rival clans. But inside the den, it's mostly quiet. The air's thick with the smell of dirt and milk and whatever your mother happened to roll in before she came home. She's the one keeping you alive. And she's not just any mother. She's a high-ranking female, perhaps even the matriarch. And if that's true, you've been born into privilege, hyena style. She returns to the den every few hours, sometimes carrying a piece of half-rotted wildebeest thigh in her jaws. But mostly she brings herself, and that's enough. Her milk is rich, thick, and all yours. If you manage to outmuscle your sibling, you get the good teat, the one that fills faster, the one that keeps you warm and fat and strong. If you don't, well, you spend a lot of time getting pushed aside, nipped at, and trying to latch on between bouts of squealing. It's rough. It's relentless. But it's also how you grow. Over the next several days, your senses begin to sharpen. Your eyes open, not all at once, more like a slow peel. And the blurry shapes around you start to resemble actual things. The den is still dim, but now you can see the dark fur of your sibling, the pink flash of their gums, the dark gleam of your mother's eyes as she watches over you with a gaze that's both weary and utterly unbothered. She doesn't coo, she doesn't cuddle, but she protects, and that's what counts. By your second week of life, you're crawling. It's not pretty. You mostly look like a sack of fur attempting yoga, slipping on the packed earth, bumping your head against the den walls. But you're learning. Your paws grow surer, your legs a bit stronger. You chase shadows. You squeal louder. You start exploring the furthest corners of the den, sniffing dried bits of grass, licking pebbles, occasionally gnawing your sibling's tail like it's the greatest discovery in the world. And outside the den, the world pulses with distant noise. The hoots of nightjars, the low grunts of other hyenas returning from hunts, the occasional roar of a lion miles away, so deep it feels like it passes through the ground and into your spine. You don't yet understand these sounds, but something in your tiny animal brain is filing them away. Important, dangerous, familiar. It's like your ears are writing their own bedtime stories. One afternoon, it's hard to say how many days have passed. You have no sense of time. Your mother enters the den and stays longer than usual. She cleans you with her rough tongue, a sandpapery gesture that feels half soothing, half exfoliation. Then she noses you gently, encouraging you to move. And for the first time, you're led out. The entrance of the den is a small arch of packed dirt, dappled with paw prints. The sunlight hits your eyes like a bucket of water, sharp and overwhelming. You blink. You blink again. Then, slowly, the world begins to take shape. Grass, endless yellow grass, twitching in the wind. Trees shaped like umbrellas. A vulture circling high above, casting a spinning shadow. The air smells of dust, warm fur, and dried blood. It is overwhelming, terrifying, beautiful, and you are a part of it. You and your sibling wobble forward, blinking, sniffing, stumbling. The adults ignore you at first. One gives you a brief glance, then returns to gnawing a bone. Another lets out a chattering whoop and trots off. You're too small to be interesting. That, in hyena society, is a temporary condition. Your mother lies nearby, lounging in the sun. She watches, but only occasionally intervenes. Like when you get too close to a burrow edge or try to mouth a sharp stick. Otherwise, she's content to let you explore, test, taste. You chew a beetle. You chase a butterfly. You try to climb a rock and fall off it with a thud. Your sibling laughs at you in a high-pitched bark. You try to bite them. They bite back. This is the beginning of life in the clan, of learning the rules no one writes down. The rule about not getting between an older female and her food. The rule about watching the body language before you approach. The rule about when to challenge and when to submit. None of this is explained. It's just understood. Slowly, painfully, hilariously. But for now, you are just a cub, a slightly too fluffy, slightly too wobbly ball of legs and teeth and hunger. You don't yet know what awaits you, who you'll grow into, how high you'll climb, what bones you'll break, or meals you'll steal. But the savannah is awake, and so are you. Your earliest days outside the den seem like a blur of sunshine, dusty paws, and the awkward clumsiness of trying to pretend you're already someone important. But really, everything in your tiny world boils down to one central drama. The sibling rivalry that flares and flickers like the dry grass around your burrow. Yes, the grass burns sometimes, but not nearly as often or as fiercely as you and your sibling fight. Because from the moment you could breathe and crawl, you were not just sharing a den. You were locked in a delicate, dangerous power struggle with someone whose teeth arrived as early as yours, and whose ambitions to rule the milk bar were just as intense. See, in hyena society, dominance isn't a suggestion, it's everything. And when two cubs are born together, especially two females, the stakes shoot up immediately. Only one gets to be the favored suckler. Only one gets the best positioning at mealtimes, the prime nuzzling spot under mother's chin, the extra lick behind the ears. And that might not sound like much, until you've spent a few nights being headbutted out of your mother's fur while your sibling latches on like it's a 5-star buffet. You've tried pushing back, of course. Those tiny teeth were made for more than just nibbling twigs. But every time you open your jaws to bite, your sibling's already biting first. The two of you tumble and squeal in the den like little growling tumbleweeds, sharp claws flailing, jaws clamped on tails or ears. Sometimes you win. Sometimes you end up underneath. Your pride bruised more than your skin. It doesn't help that your mother, though high-ranking and respected, is in no mood for refereeing. Her job, in the grand scheme of hyena parenting, is to keep you fed and safe from lions and rival clans, settling squabbles between two outrageously loud fuzzballs? Not in her contract. She'll grunt now and then if you get too loud, maybe shoot a warning glance, but mostly, she's content to let nature play it out. And oh, does nature play rough. Still, between the jostles and nips, there's something else slowly growing. A strange kind of companionship, because you know every angle of that face. You've shared every inch of fur space in the den. You've slept pressed against your sibling during the cold nights when the wind whistles over the plains. You've taken turns using each other as pillows and sneezing directly into each other's faces. It's complicated, this bond. One moment you're growling over a leaf. The next, you're running in perfectly synchronized circles outside the den entrance, barking at a lizard that couldn't care less. The rivalry never disappears, but it becomes something you both understand. Like background noise, like the way vultures always show up a little too early, or how the dry grass always squeaks under your paws after midday. Constant, predictable, and still, on some level, necessary. By your third week in the nursery grounds, the cluster of interconnected burrows where all the cubs of the clan gather each day, you and your sibling have earned a reputation. The others know not to get between you when the milk call goes out. They also know you're fiercely loyal to each other against outsiders. You might bicker endlessly, but when a pushy cousin tries to bite your sibling's tail, you're there in an instant, fur bristled, tiny jaws bared. It's kind of adorable, and also kind of terrifying. The clan watches too. The adults don't interfere often, but they notice, especially the older females. Hyena society is led by the ladies, and they pay close attention to which cubs show spine, which ones back down, and who remembers their place in the pecking order. You don't know it yet, but the way you and your sibling act now could shape your future position, whether you get the scraps or the first bite, the back of the pack or the prime seat near the matriarch. You're already being judged, but mostly you're just being. Learning what it means to be small in a big world. Running through mud puddles that splash up into your ears. Chewing on bones that are far too big for your mouth. Barking at termites. trying to mimic the grown-ups' cackling calls and ending up sounding like a goat who stubbed its toe. And always, your sibling is right there. Together, you sneak up on grasshoppers. You wrestle endlessly in the dust. You fall asleep in sunspots, curled into matching crescents. Sometimes you wake up first and tug their ear with your teeth until they yelp. Sometimes they do the same to you. One time, you both accidentally tumble into a shallow hole and panic as though the world is ending, even though it's only knee-deep. You scream. You claw at the edges. You finally climb out, covered in dirt, both of you acting like war heroes afterward. A big adult male walks past during your dramatic recovery and barely glances at you. You bark at his tail anyway. He doesn't react. It's a small, silly life, but it's yours, and it's growing larger every day. Soon, you'll learn more about your place in the clan. More than just fight sibling, steal food. You'll begin to understand the way adult hyenas interact. How dominance isn't just about snarling. It's about posture, eye contact, body language. How a raised tail means power. How a lowered head means submission. And how sniffing the wrong rump at the wrong time can result in a humiliating chase around the termite mounds. But for now, you're still a cub. You don't need to understand politics. You just need to find the next antelope bone and figure out how to balance it on your head. There's something freeing about that, about not knowing how fragile life is yet. You've already survived the hardest part. Birth. That's not an exaggeration. For hyenas, the birthing process is notoriously dangerous. Female hyenas give birth through a pseudopenis that's also used for urination, mating, and giving birth. One of nature's more dramatic design oversights. Many cubs don't survive. Many mothers suffer from injuries. But you made it through. You and your sibling came into this world squirming and howling and very much alive. Now you're learning how to keep it that way. By pushing, by biting, by bonding, by growing. And every time you trip over your two big paws, or get smacked by your sibling for stealing a beetle, you are becoming something more. Not just a survivor, but a contender. You don't quite understand it yet, but your mother isn't just your mother. She's the mother. The one the others lower their heads around. The one who walks into the communal feeding zone and doesn't wait her turn. The one who takes what she wants, drops bones where she pleases, and doesn't blink when a grown male twice her size slinks away because he knows better than to test her teeth. She is the matriarch, or at least very close to the top, and you are her offspring, which means you carry that weight, whether you asked for it or not. Her presence is undeniable, even to you. She walks with a confidence that crackles, muscles firm under a coat, thick with coarse spots. Her jaw is scarred in places, her ears chewed at the edges from fights she didn't lose. You watch how the others react to her, even the ones older than her. They flatten their ears, dip their heads, wait until she's done eating before daring to approach. You're too young to interpret every signal, but the atmosphere changes when she arrives. Like the air has grown heavier, quieter, and more electric. She's not affectionate in any traditional sense. She doesn't nuzzle or cuddle or whisper cooing noises. Her love is practical. She stands guard when a leopard prowls nearby. She tolerates your messes. She growls at anyone who gets too close to the den. She cleans you when you're filthy and defends you when you cry. It's not warmth, it's steel, but it's your steel, and it's strangely comforting. Hyena society is female-led, and not just in the mom makes the rules way. The females are larger, tougher, and meaner than the males. The power structure isn't optional. It's coded into your bones. Even as a cub, you're higher ranked than some of the adult males in the clan, just because of who your mother is. That's how it works. Power is inherited here, passed through the maternal line like a secret name. You don't know it yet, but this privilege you've been born into, this invisible crown, will define the rest of your life. It doesn't make things easier, though. It just means the pressure is higher. There are expectations now. Others are watching to see if you live up to your bloodline, if you show the bite and the boldness to carry the torch forward. Your mother's status gives you a head start, but it doesn't shield you from scrutiny. If anything, it paints a bigger target on your back for those who'd love to see you stumble. And your mother, for all her power, doesn't explain any of this. She simply models it. She shows you how to walk like you own the dirt, how to snap your jaws with just the right tilt of warning, how to ignore a challenge until it crosses the line, then respond with absolute ferocity. She teaches with her silence and her scars. You learn by watching. One morning, she leads you and your sibling a little farther than usual. The sun is just climbing, orange behind the flat horizon. The dew still clings to the grass, making your paws damp and cool. You're sleepy, dragging behind, your belly full from last night's milk. But your mother is moving with purpose. She leads you past the usual patch of den entrances, past the half-fallen termite mound, past the spot where the bones pile up from old kills. And there, at the edge of the nursery ground, the rest of the clan is gathering. It's not a hunting party. They're just being, resting, grooming, yawning wide enough to show teeth stained by years of bone cracking. You feel tiny, suddenly, uncertain. You press close to your mother's flank, but she nudges you forward with her snout. Just a little push, firm and unspoken. Go on, be seen. You shuffle into the gathering, wide-eyed. One of the older cubs, months ahead of you in size and sass, snorts and rolls her eyes, but doesn't move to stop you. A pair of males watch you, but offer no reaction. An old female yawns and flicks her ear, unimpressed. It's not applause exactly, but it's not rejection either. You belong here. For now, a young male slinks toward your mother, his body low and submissive. He whines softly and nuzzles her chin. She grunts and lets him groom her for a few seconds before swatting him away with a paw. He retreats, licking his lips, tail between his legs, but clearly relieved to have been acknowledged. You watch this exchange with fascination. This is power. Not yelling, not chasing, just existing in a way that forces others to fold around you like grass in wind. Your mother lies down with a grunt, and you curl beside her. The clan settles into lazy postures. Some start grooming one another. A few begin dozing. The wind picks up slightly, rustling the grass like whispered gossip. You start to drift, lulled by the hum of breath and heat and flies. And that's when your sibling bites your ear. Hard, you yelp, snapping awake, scrambling to your feet. Your sibling looks at you like what? As if they didn't just commit an act of absolute betrayal. You retaliate with a half-hearted lunge, but your mother growls low in her throat, a sound that halts both of you instantly. You sit. They sit. Everyone pretends nothing happened. The hierarchy starts early. Over the next few days, you begin noticing the nuances in how the adults interact. There are subtle signs. Head tilts, tail flicks, the speed of a walk. Two females might bump shoulders and seem friendly, but one always initiates, always leads. Males, even the older ones, rarely challenge. They hover around the edges, waiting for permission, living in a world where their position is temporary and fragile. You don't understand all the rules yet, but you absorb the patterns. You learn when to approach, when to avoid, when to pretend you weren't staring. You're watching your mother all the time now, not just for protection, but for reference, for clues. You mimic her gait. You try to copy the way she scans the horizon with narrowed eyes, even if you're mostly just looking for more beetles to chase. Once, she catches you doing it and snorts, amused. It's the closest thing to a compliment you've ever received. Later that day, she brings back meat. You've smelled it before, distantly, on her breath or in the air. But this is the first time she drops a hunk of raw, shredded flesh right in front of you. Your instincts kick in before your thoughts can catch up. You dive forward, teeth gnashing, pulling at the stringy strips of meat like your life depends on it. It does, sort of. Your sibling dives in too, and the two of you tumble into a chaotic blur of growling, slipping, snapping, and kicking. You don't even know what animal this used to be. You just know it's delicious, tangy, alive with flavor. You get a mouthful of tendon and chew it until your jaws ache, pride swelling with every bite. And above you, your mother watches with quiet approval. She doesn't interfere. You're learning. You're becoming not just a cub anymore, but a hyena. The first time you hear the clan gather for a real hunt, the sound doesn't come gradually. It arrives all at once. Sharp yips, rising whoops, low-pitched chuckles echoing across the savannah like laughter swallowed by wind. You're still half asleep when the first adult bolts past the den, paws thudding softly against the dust, her belly taut with tension, her eyes locked on something unseen in the distance. Another follows, then another, until the air hums with anticipation. You can't help but scramble to the edge of the den, your oversized ears perked and twitching, eyes scanning the horizon. Your mother is already standing. She hasn't made a sound, but her posture has changed. Head forward, tail flicking slightly, alert and collected in that eerily calm way she always adopts right before something important. She looks back at you and your sibling just once, then trots off, not waiting for permission or offering an explanation, because there is no explanation needed. You'll learn, in time, that this is what life demands. One moment of stillness can tip without warning into pursuit. Hunting isn't just something hyenas do. It's a test, a ritual, a performance that spans miles and time and instinct. You don't get to go yet. You and your sibling are still too small, too loud, too liable to mess everything up with an ill-timed squeak. But you feel the pull, the excitement, the sense that out there, in the rustling fields and beyond the baobab silhouettes, something is unfolding. A drama of dust and hooves and blood and victory, so you wait. You lie near the den entrance, your nose twitching with the smells carried back on the breeze. Hot earth, cracked grass, sweat, and something heavier. Prey. You imagine what they're chasing. A zebra, maybe, or a gazelle, darting like a ribbon across the plains, flanked on either side by your clanmates closing in with relentless determination. You picture it the way only a cub can, gloriously dramatic, filled with heroic snarls and perfectly timed leaps, The reality, of course, is less poetic. Hyena hunts are brutal marathons. They don't rely on surprise like leopards or on brute strength like lions. They rely on endurance, strategy, and patience. They can chase a wildebeest for miles, herding it, separating it from the herd, waiting for the right moment to attack its weakest point. Their jaws, famously powerful, can crack bones with the ease of snapping a twig. But before the bite comes the brain work. It's not always graceful, it's not always clean, but it's astonishingly effective. And when they return, when they return, you know from 100 meters away that the hunt was good. Your mother's muzzle is stained dark. There's a streak of something brown and sticky running down her chest. She's breathing hard but calm, her eyes glinting with that eerie satisfaction of a job well done. Behind her, others return too, some with meat dangling from their jaws, some licking their chops, all of them moving with the slow, satisfied swagger of creatures who have worked for and earned their meal. You rush forward, ears perked, eyes wide, only to be blocked by a snap from one of the older females. Not yet. Not your turn. Cubs feed last. Another rule of hyena life. You and your sibling watch from the edges, licking your lips, tails twitching with anticipation. Eventually, someone tosses aside a stripped leg bone, and that's your moment. You pounce. The meat's mostly gone, but the flavor remains, soaked into the bone, embedded in the marrow. You gnaw and chew, your teeth scraping against the dense surface. It's not glamorous, but it's real. This is how you begin to move from milk-fed cub to scavenger to predator. You're still clumsy, still small, still living in a world that tolerates you more than it celebrates you. But that bone, that's yours. You earned it by waiting, by watching, by knowing when to leap. After a few more hunts, the process becomes familiar. You know what to listen for. The low whoop of a rally call, the rustle of dry grass crushed beneath urgent paws. You know that your mother always leads or follows close behind the lead female. You know that certain clanmates return with more scraps than others, and that some of the males rarely come back with anything at all. You start to read these behaviors, cataloging them quietly in the back of your mind. And when the adults sleep during the hot afternoons, you and your sibling reenact the hunt in miniature. You crouch behind tufts of grass, pretending to stalk invisible prey. You take turns chasing each other across the den site, tumbling, growling, rolling in the dust. Sometimes you leap onto your sibling's back and tumble together like a miniature stampede. You practice ambushes, charging from behind rocks or leaping from low branches. It's messy, loud, and absolutely essential. Because hyenas don't just know how to hunt. They practice. And every pounce, every missed lunge, every failed stalk is one step closer to competence. One day, your mother returns from a hunt with something different. She doesn't drop it for the clan. She brings it straight to you and your sibling, a small piece of meat, slightly dried at the edges, still warm. She sets it down and waits. It's a test. You both hesitate, then lunge at it together. You manage to grab a bigger piece. Your sibling gets a chunk of sinew. You chew, gag slightly, chew again. The taste is gamey, but it stays down. Your mother watches silently, and then she walks away. That's it. That's how you learn you've been promoted, from observer to participant. Not yet a full hunter, no, but the seed has been planted. Later that night, the clan gathers under the stars. The air is cooler now, the sky vast and velvet black. The whooping calls rise again, not for hunting this time, but for communication. Hyenas are surprisingly vocal. They use over a dozen distinct calls: whoops, grunts, giggles, moans. You listen to them like lullabies, each sound telling a story. Where the others are, what they want, whether danger is near, whether a kill has been made. It's a symphony of coded messages, and you're just beginning to understand the score. You and your sibling curl together near the center of the den site, bellies full, ears twitching at the sounds around you. Tomorrow you might follow the hunt a little farther. Tomorrow you might get closer to the kill. But tonight, the wind carries laughter through the trees. The stars blink slowly overhead, and you are wrapped in dust and fur and the unshakable certainty that you are growing stronger with every bite. You awaken before the sun does. The sky is still a bruise-colored dome stretched over the savannah, and everything is hushed with that strange quiet that only exists just before dawn, when even the insects pause, as if waiting for permission to buzz. The air is crisp, a little damp with dew, and your nostrils twitch as you take it in, filled with scents you can't yet name, but already understand on a primal level. This is the hour when most cubs sleep, curled beside their mothers or tucked into the crooks of old burrows. But not you. Not today. Because today is the day you follow, not just a little further than usual, not just to the edge of the familiar den mounds or the shade of the thorny acacia. No. This morning, you are determined to keep up. To see the hunt not in your mind, not from the stories of bones tossed at your feet afterward, but with your own eyes. You pretend not to make a big deal out of it. You don't puff your chest or howl dramatically. You just shadow your mother quietly when she begins her long, low trot across the grasslands. She doesn't stop you. She doesn't glance back. She doesn't offer encouragement or correction. That's not her way. But she doesn't push you back toward the den either. Which means you're in. Your sibling notices, of course. Within moments, they've caught up too, shooting you a look that's half challenge, half excitement, all teeth. The two of you flank your mother like fuzzy bookends, legs working overtime to match her pace. She glides effortlessly, muscles rippling beneath her coat, while you clatter behind, breath already coming fast. Still, you don't complain. You just keep going. It's not just you three. Others have joined the movement too. You hear them before you see them. Faint huffs and rustles, soft growls exchanged like sleepy greetings, the distinct rhythm of hyena feet moving with purpose. Soon, the group begins to coalesce into a loose formation, not a pack in the organized sense, but something closer to organized chaos. Everyone knows their place, or at least they pretend to. You try to blend in. Keep your head up. Don't trip over your own paws. Look sharp. Look serious. You probably look like a toddler trying to march in a military parade, but no one kicks you out. That's a win. Then suddenly the mood shifts. It starts with a scent, so faint you barely notice it. But the adults do. Ears perk, tails lift, postures sharpen. Your mother slows, sniffs the air, then emits a low, vibrating grunt. Not quite a growl, not quite a purr, more like a code, Something is close. And in that moment, you understand why hyenas are not the sloppy scavengers the stories say they are. They are efficient. They are alert. They are frighteningly coordinated. Within seconds, the group begins to spread out, not running yet, but widening their net, noses down, eyes forward. You feel your heart beating in your throat. Then, far off to your left, a sharp whoop breaks the silence, and the chase begins. The herd appears like a magic trick. Suddenly there, suddenly everywhere. A cluster of springbok, maybe 24 strong, ears flaring and legs churning as they flee across the plain. The air fills with the sound of thudding hooves, the dust rising in swirls behind them. You barely see who moves first, but the hyenas are already in motion, breaking into a fluid sprint, not chaotic, but practiced, flowing around bushes and termite mounds with ease. Your legs kick into motion without thinking. It's exhilarating and terrifying. The ground passes beneath you in a blur. Grass brushes against your belly. You pant hard, not because you're tired yet, but because it's all happening so fast. To your surprise, you're not last. A few younger males hang back too, their eyes on the chase, but their feet more cautious. You feel a tiny swell of pride. Not bad, little one. You can't keep pace forever. Your muscles burn, your breaths become wheezes, but you keep the herd in sight for a long time, longer than you thought possible. And then it's over. Not for the adults. They're still out there, far ahead, snapping and circling and cornering something that's limping now, panicked, its energy drained. But for you, this is your line. You slow to a trot, then to a walk, then to a collapsed pile of fur and ribs and dust. You flop down in the grass, ears twitching, tongue lolling, lungs heaving. But you saw it. You saw the hunt happen. That's what matters. Eventually, the clan begins to return in 2s and 3s, blood-smudged and satisfied. Your mother isn't among the first, but when she arrives, you know. She's carrying a strip of hide in her jaws, something freshly torn and still steaming. Without ceremony, she drops it near you, gives you a grunt that might mean eat, or might mean you didn't die today. Good job. Either way, you devour the gift. It tastes like smoke and fire and pride. Your sibling plops down beside you, equally winded, equally grinning in that awkward, tongue-lolling way cubs do when they think they've done something important. The two of you chew in relative peace, exchanging tired nudges and half-hearted growls, then curl together in the grass, the sounds of the savannah returning slowly around you, the birds restarting their chatter, the wind picking up again, the insects humming like a faraway lullaby. Later, as the sun climbs and the heat presses down again, the entire clan lounges in scattered clusters. Grooming resumes. Bored tail swats become the new sport. A couple of juveniles play fight near a sun-bleached ribcage, jaws open, laughing. You join them briefly, though your muscles protest. It's not about winning. It's about belonging. You're a hunter now, sort of. Okay, more like a witness. But still, it counts. And as you drift into a light sleep beneath a low bush, dust still stuck in your fur, you realize something else. No one had to teach you how to run, or when to run, or where to go. You knew. Your legs knew. Your lungs knew. This isn't just something you do. It's something you are. There's a saying the humans like, born to the chase. You don't know what humans are yet, but if they're talking about hyenas, they're right. As your limbs begin to lengthen and your fur takes on the fuller, rougher texture of youth creeping toward adolescence. The den starts to feel smaller. Not literally, of course. It hasn't shrunk, but in that quiet, unmistakable way that places do when you've outgrown them. The shadows cast by its gnarled roots no longer seem vast. The protective hush that once wrapped around you now feels like a curtain drawn too long. You still return to it every night, still curl up beside your sibling in the familiar groove worn into the dirt. But your thoughts now stretch past the boundaries of that place, pulled outward by instinct and curiosity. You've begun to notice things, not just the obvious: who's bringing home meat, who wins the mock fights, who gets the best grooming spot, but things underneath those things, like how the adult males carry themselves differently when the dominant females are near. How a sidelong glance from your mother is enough to stop a younger female in her tracks. Or how sometimes silence between two clanmates is louder than a growl. These are social cues, hierarchies playing out in tiny, quiet motions. And you're finally learning to read them. Your own status, of course, is inherited. Being born to a high-ranking female grants you automatic respect from those below. A sort of invisible cushion you don't yet fully appreciate, but others certainly do. You're still a cub in many ways. Still too fluffy, still too goofy. But you've noticed how others defer when you approach. How they give way at the waterhole. How even some of the juveniles lower their heads slightly when you pass. It's subtle, but it's real. And you begin to test it. Not with cruelty, no. Though that temptation simmers, as it does for all young creatures who suddenly taste influence. But with small experiments. You take a second helping of marrow from a shared bone. You block a den entrance just to see who circles around instead of confronting you. You initiate play with a juvenile male who outranks you in size but not in name, and he lets you win. It's intoxicating. This power, however soft around the edges, starts to feel like part of your skin. But your mother sees it too. And one evening, just as the horizon blushes orange and the wind shifts to carry the scent of distant rains, she corrects you. Not with words, she has none. Not with violence, she doesn't need it. But with presence. You swagger a little too close to the central cluster, where the older females lounge with full bellies and half-lidded eyes. You nudge your way in, aiming for a spot between two of them. They glance at you, then back at your mother, who's a few steps behind. She says nothing. Then she steps forward. She nudges you firmly, redirects your body, places you just slightly behind her haunch. Not exiled, not shamed, but repositioned, reminded. Not yet. And just like that, the spell breaks. Because rank is inherited, yes. But respect is earned. You sulk for a while. You pretend you're not sulking, of course. Digging at a stick, chewing lazily on a feather, watching insects with exaggerated interest. But you are. And then your sibling tackles you. Hard enough to send both of you rolling through the dust. And for a few moments, you forget everything except laughter and the taste of grit. Time passes strangely during these days. Not slow exactly, but stretched, like sun-warmed taffy pulled between two poles. Some weeks are endless, filled with hunts and heat and dry mouths. Others vanish in a blink, swallowed by the rhythm of chewing, dozing, chasing, chewing again. There's no calendar here. No hourglass, only the growth of your limbs and the changing flavor of the wind. The clan begins to move more often now, sometimes just short distances, following migrating herds, avoiding lion territory, seeking cooler places to rest. Other times, the moves are broader, more purposeful. You cross dried riverbeds, where the sand glints white and sharp as broken shells. You pad through groves where elephants have snapped branches like matchsticks. You sleep beneath stars so wide and clear they seem close enough to touch. And you dream of things your body already knows, but your mind hasn't named yet. Pursuit, hunger, heat, dust. Migration isn't just about following food. It's about survival, about avoiding the traps laid by drought and competition. And as the clan shifts its shape and speed to fit these new paths, you find yourself adjusting with them. You're stronger now. Your muscles don't ache after a sprint the way they used to. Your paws have toughened. Your jaw's grown firmer. You've started participating in smaller chases. Not full hunts yet, but flanks, diversions. Your role is to confuse, to help herd, to nip at the back legs and force a mistake. And you're good at it. Fast, focused, surprisingly silent when you need to be. There's one chase you'll remember long after the dust settles. A small herd of impala grazes near a line of scrub. The wind is on your side. The signal comes, a barely audible grunt, and you dart left, skirting the edge of the thicket. Your sibling mirrors you on the right. You're not supposed to get close, not yet. You're still practicing. But something in the herd panics early. A doe bolts, veering straight toward your path. And you run, not the awkward run of your cubhood, not the stumbly, overly eager gallop, but a clean, fluid motion. Legs pumping, chest low, eyes locked. You don't catch her, of course not, but you spook her just enough. She zigzags. A senior female cuts her off, and the rest is inevitable. When the kill is done, your role is acknowledged. Not with cheers, not with praise, but with space. They let you feed early, not first, not center, but early, and as you chew, blood hot against your teeth, you know. This was no longer pretend. You are becoming, but there's still so much to learn. Like how to read the sky. Your mother does it almost unconsciously, glancing upward, sniffing, shifting her steps. You start to copy her. You notice how the birds behave before a storm, how the insects vanish, how the air tastes metallic right before the first drop. Then there's scent. You knew scent was important, of course. But now you start to really understand it. How it tells you what passed by hours ago. How it reveals mood, status, even illness. You start marking more intentionally, rubbing your scent against bushes, dung piles, tree trunks, claiming, announcing, becoming part of the woven fabric of smells that tell every passerby, I was here. And in return, you read the stories others leave behind. A lion has passed nearby. A snake has coiled near that rock. A rival clan lingers at the edge of your range, their markings fresh and bold. These are things you know without needing to see. The world becomes a whispering place, always speaking, if you listen closely enough. By now, you and your sibling rarely stay at the den. You move with the group. You sleep in the open. You join in the shared work of survival. You've left behind the soft edges of childhood. There's less time for play, though you still roughhouse occasionally, especially when the tension builds or the heat makes everyone irritable. But the stakes are higher. A bite too hard might be taken as a challenge. A snarl too loud might be heard by something worse than a clanmate. Still, you move forward. You wake with the sun. You walk miles. You howl at dusk, not with the high-pitched giggle of a cub, but with the deep, resonant whoop of something older, not yet adult, but undeniably real. By now, you've begun to notice that the world, as wide and wild as it is, tends to repeat itself. Certain smells come back each season. Certain rival clans always circle around the same worn boundary. Certain herds migrate along invisible lines, as if tethered to a giant wheel of routine. And with each repetition, you find yourself recognizing your place in the grand choreography of plains life. Not as a mere observer, but as an increasingly active player in the ritual of survival. The rains, though momentarily generous, recede quickly. Puddles shrink. The grass, once a vibrant quilt of greens, begins to pale at the tips. The air thickens with dust again, and the cracks in the earth widen like old, smiling scars. It's all expected, predictable, but your body doesn't resist it anymore. You've learned to bend with the landscape. Hunger returns with the dryness. This time, though, you don't just wait for scraps. You've started going on full hunts. No more practice loops around the impala. No more flanking runs that end in backing off. You're shoulder to shoulder with the adults now. You track, you stalk, you charge. You understand the rhythm of a chase. Not just speed, but timing. You learn when to push and when to feint. When to swing wide and when to bite. There's a hunt you remember with terrifying clarity. It begins at dusk. The clan spots a wounded wildebeest lingering near a shallow slope, half limping but stubborn, grazing alone while the herd moves ahead. A decision is made almost wordlessly. The matriarch gives a short bark. You fall into position. At first, you're nervous. You've chased smaller prey before, hares, young warthogs, but never something this large. Its size alone could crush you. But the chase ignites something ancient in your bones, something older than fear. You don't go for the kill bite. That's not your role yet. You harass, you distract, you snap at hooves, push it off balance, wear it down. Your breath burns. Your legs feel like firewood. But you don't stop. By the end, when the wildebeest collapses in exhaustion and the others move in, you stand to the side, chest heaving, tongue lolling, and you know, down to the marrow, that you helped make this happen, that this life fed to the clan exists in part because of your effort. You're offered an early spot at the carcass. Not first, still not prime, but no one pushes you off. This is how you rise, and not just in rank, but in identity. You are not the cub anymore. Your sibling sees it too. In fact, they've been changing at their own pace, perhaps faster, or perhaps they've just figured something out that you haven't. There's a new distance between you, not one of malice or betrayal, just a drifting. You still sleep beside each other when the nights grow cold, still bump shoulders in passing, but your paths during the day have started to fork. They linger more often near the older females. You spend more time alone, exploring outer edges. When you cross paths during a kill or patrol, there's acknowledgement, but it's no longer laced with unspoken competition. You're not rivals now. You're individuals, and in a clan, that distinction means everything. Meanwhile, the younger cubs have started looking up to you. It's an odd sensation to go from the smallest teeth in the den to the subject of mimicry. They follow you when you walk past. They bark in your direction when you groom. They attempt to join you in patrols and play too roughly, trying to prove themselves. You don't scold them. You remember how it felt. You offer them patience, which is rare in the world you live in. One evening, A particularly bold little female tugs on your tail while you're finishing off a scrap of hide. You whirl around, ready to growl, but stop. Her ears are back. She's challenging you, sure. But it's more than that. It's a question. Am I allowed to try? You lift your paw and thump it lightly against her head. Not hard. Just enough to tell her, not yet. But keep trying. She beams, if such a word can be used for a face covered in drying blood and dust. That's how it begins. You start grooming others. First your sibling, then a juvenile, then one of the cubs. Not excessively. Not because you crave closeness, but because it's how bonds form. Grooming is a currency, a silent pact. It means trust, peace, belonging. The matriarch sees you doing this. One day, she walks past as you're gently picking burrs from a subordinate's fur. She pauses just a second, glances your way, and grunts softly. That's all. But in the world of hyenas, that grunt might as well be a golden crown. You're coming into your own. You've also begun to understand the deeper rituals of your kind. Not just the hunts and chases, but the social ceremonies. The morning whoops that reaffirm who's still here. The communal gatherings around old kills where dominance is retested. The scent-marking routines that trace the very edges of your known world. And you play your part. You sniff, you mark, you whoop. You even lead a short patrol one morning, flanked by two others just slightly younger. You don't realize you're leading at first. It just happens. You walk ahead. They follow. You pause. They pause. You climb a rock. They wait below. When you return, they bark softly. Approval. There's no fanfare, no applause. Just that small moment when the world adjusts to you being just a little more than you were yesterday. Of course, not every day is triumph. Some days, you lose prey. Some nights, you sleep hungry. One morning, you wake to find a juvenile missing, taken by lions in the night. The loss isn't spoken of directly, but the mood is colder, harsher. One of the elder females howls softly at dusk, a mournful sound that lifts into the air and vanishes into silence. You sit beside your sibling that night. No words, just warmth. Even now, when the bonds are looser, they matter. It's during this period that your mother begins to shift away from you too. She's not unkind, not absent, but her grooming lessens. Her patience shortens. You're no longer under her wing. You're beside it, and that's how it should be. Because soon, if you're male, you'll be expected to leave. And if you're female, you'll be expected to rise. There's no ceremony, no farewell, just the slow, subtle rewiring of your role within the clan. You are watched, you are weighed, and quietly, you are welcomed into adulthood. The morning breaks without fanfare. No thunder, no dazzling sunrise. Just the slow, smoky peel of shadows retreating from the earth as a tired sun drags itself over the horizon, stretching long golden fingers across your sleeping fur. You blink against the light, ears twitching before your eyes even open. The ground is cold beneath you, dew chilling your belly. And somewhere nearby, a bird calls out a lazy, broken song. You rise slowly, bones a little stiffer than yesterday, joints crackling like dry leaves. You're still young, but no longer new. This is the season of testing, not just by the land, which has grown stingier with each passing week. The rains are a distant memory. The grass is brittle, the ground hot and cracked, but also by the clan itself. Roles are shifting like sand beneath your feet. Where once you followed, now you are expected to anticipate. Where once you played, now you must perform. You don't quite notice the change as it's happening. No one announces it. No one says, "Today you are expected to lead." It simply begins, like dawn. You're sent out more often on solo errands. Nothing dramatic. A patrol of a narrow stretch of scrubland. A fetch mission to check for remains of a carcass reported by vultures. A flank during a scouting party. But these are trust tests, and you feel it. The invisible weight of eyes on your back. Evaluating. You learn to read tracks more closely. Not just the shape of the hoof or claw, but how deep it sinks into the earth. How far apart each print lies. Whether it belongs to something limping or something running full tilt. You sniff the edges of dung piles, catching the sharp tang of stress. The cooler signature of recent passage. You can now tell if an impala passed hours ago or minutes. You can tell if it's been hunted recently, whether by lion, leopard, or your own kind. Your mind begins to sharpen around these things. The savannah is no longer just a playground or a battlefield. It's a ledger of movements, a living map written in scent and silence. You start seeing things before they happen. You notice birds lifting before a rustle. You recognize tension in the air before a chase erupts. You begin to predict, and prediction is power. On one patrol, you pause by a shallow gorge, sniffing the wind. Something's wrong. You don't see it, don't hear it, but you feel it. That eerie weight in your stomach, that tight hum behind your ears. So you stop and wait. You force your breath to slow. You shift your ears forward. Then, as if on cue, a distant growl rolls across the dry air. Deep. Feline. Lion. You don't run. Running is noisy. You retreat. Slowly. Quietly. And when you return to your clan, they listen. They change course. That evening, the group circles wider, safer. No one praises you outright, but your name is passed through a few grooming sessions with a little more warmth. You're growing into your instincts. Of course, growing doesn't mean untouchable. You learn this painfully during a minor confrontation with a high-ranking cousin. It begins over food, an old zebra leg, mostly bone, but still rich with tendon. You arrive a bit too quickly, take a bit too boldly. She notices. She corrects. The altercation is short, brutal, and efficient. You're left with a cut on your shoulder and a bruise to your pride. But you don't sulk. That's the difference now. You don't retreat to cry behind a bush or wait for your sibling to comfort you. You limp off, clean your wound, rest. The next day, you resume your role as if nothing happened. Because that's the unspoken rule of adulthood. Pain is private, and hierarchy is maintained in silence. There's another change too, subtle but undeniable. You begin watching the sky, not just for vultures or weather shifts, but for something else, movement. One morning, during a routine patrol, a speck drifts overhead. Too slow for a hawk, too large for a swallow. It circles once, then again. And then you hear the distant rumble. Soft, mechanical. A truck, humans. You've never seen them close. Only their metal beasts on distant roads. Their scent on abandoned cloth. Their strange footprints around old fire pits. But the elders speak of them, rarely and without fondness. Some say they bring food, sometimes dead animals left behind. Others say they bring death, with loud sticks and smoke and traps hidden under leaves. Your first real encounter comes weeks later. It begins with a carcass, an easy one. A goat, fresh, left untouched in the open. No signs of a predator, no blood trail, no hoof prints of a fleeing herd. Just meat, waiting. Too easy. Your clan hesitates. Even the boldest among you circles warily, but eventually, hunger overrides suspicion. A few approach, sniff, nibble, and then the explosion. A sudden, ear-splitting bang. One of the young males screams, his leg caught in something metal, sharp. He writhes, dragging the trap with him, blood painting the dirt. The clan scatters. You don't run far. You hide behind a bush, heart hammering, eyes wide. You watch as humans emerge. They don't chase. They simply walk forward, calm and slow, dragging the injured hyena away. No shouting, no mercy. Then they vanish. The savannah falls quiet. That night, the clan doesn't howl. There's no rally, no celebration, just silence. And in the days that follow, you notice how everyone starts checking carcasses with more caution, sniffing not just for food, but for metal, for danger. The savannah has shifted again. Another player has entered, and you are reminded sharply that survival here isn't just about strength or speed. It's about knowing when not to act. Still, life presses forward. You heal, you learn, you take fewer risks. You trust fewer things. But oddly, this makes you more confident, not less. Because now your instincts are informed not just by blood and bone, but by experience, by memory. You become sharper, wiser, and with that wisdom comes something else. The awareness of your own body, not just how it moves, but how it's changing. Your gait has lengthened. Your shoulders are heavier. Your jaw feels stronger. You can crush bone with ease now. Not just the small bones, but the thick femurs. You crack them, suck out the marrow. You don't eat first, not always, but you no longer eat last. And others defer, even some older than you. They move aside when you growl. Not always, not instantly, but they do. You're not the matriarch, no, not even close. But you're becoming a figure, a presence. And that's a dangerous thing in the world of hyenas. Because once you're noticed, truly noticed, you're expected to matter. You begin to notice your own presence in the way others react when you walk past. Not with submission, not yet, but with a curious mixture of caution and respect. An extra beat of hesitation before they cross your path. A slightly lowered head when they groom near you. Even the cubs, rowdy and chaotic as ever, don't dare tug your ears anymore unless you've clearly signaled permission. You are no longer defined by who raised you or who you played beside. You are becoming your own definition. And in the whispering hierarchy of hyenas, that means something is shifting beneath your paws. One morning, as you rise with the mist still clinging to the tall grass, the air already tinged with heat and dust, you feel something odd. A stillness in your chest. Not fear, not joy, something quieter, heavier. A sense that today will not be like other days. It begins with a howl. Not yours, not nearby, but close enough to carry clearly. It's a whoop you don't recognize. Not one of your own clan. You freeze. Moments later, your matriarch lifts her head from a shallow dip in the shade. She doesn't vocalize, but the twitch in her ear, the tilt of her body, tell you she's heard it too. And suddenly, the entire clan is in motion. Not in a panic, but in that purposeful, focused way. That means only one thing: boundary. A rival clan has entered your territory. This isn't like last time, with the distant standoff and dramatic howling. This is different. Closer. Bolder. You move as one, a ribbon of dappled bodies through the gold grass waves. Your heart thumps not with fear, but with clarity. You know your role now. You know your body, your clan, your ground. The others fan out, flanking instinctively. You stay near the center. You're not in command, but you're close enough to feel the weight of decisions. The confrontation comes quickly. They're already there, across the shallow ravine. 9 of them, bold and upright, tails half raised. They aren't as many as you, but their presence is cocky, young, hungry, probably desperate. Your clan stops at the ridge. A low growl rumbles through your group like a subterranean drumbeat, and then the calls begin again. Not rallying this time, posturing. The sound is higher, sharper, less music, more blade. Then, a single figure from the rival group steps forward. Not the largest, but clearly the leader. Likely a young matriarch in the making. Her ears twitch, her eyes narrow, and she lets out a laugh. Yes, a laugh. Hyena laughter isn't joy. It's declaration. A chaotic, high-pitched burst that says, "I'm not afraid of you." A signal of status. A dare. Your matriarch responds with a snort and a deep, guttural whoop. And then, nothing. Stillness. Like 2 storms meeting with no wind yet. For several minutes, no one moves. The tension stretches, taut as a snare wire. You barely breathe, and then a rustle. It's not a charge, not a coordinated attack. Just a flick of muscle memory. A younger male on your side bolts forward, maybe too soon, maybe acting on impulse. Your clan doesn't hold him back. He reaches the divide, snaps his jaws, kicks dust. The rivals hold. He lunges again, just a little closer. And suddenly the air erupts. The rival clan breaks into motion, scattering like startled starlings, not fleeing exactly, but shifting ground, testing, flanking, trying to find weak spots. Your side surges forward in turn, not quite into battle, but into assertion. There are no serious bites, no blood drawn, but bodies crash. Dirt flies, tails lash. You don't stay back. You leap into the scuffle, not mindlessly, but precisely. You aim for posture, not pain. You snarl at one female your size, baring your teeth without touching her. She hesitates, steps back. You step forward. This is the dance of dominance. A flurry of threats with very little actual violence. Everyone's weighing everyone, measuring numbers, testing resolve. It's like a chess match with fur and muscle. And then, just as quickly as it began, it ends. They leave. No one chases. There's no victory cry. No whooping parade. Just the slow, deep panting of a dozen creatures realizing how close it came to tipping. That evening, the clan gathers in the low field where a few acacia trees lean like gossiping elders. The air smells of sweat and stirred soil. Your matriarch walks past you slowly and bumps your side with her shoulder. You blink. You don't move. She doesn't look back. But that bump, that brief pressure, is more than acknowledgement. It's an endorsement. A quiet nod in the theater of hyena politics. You sleep that night with your legs stretched wide, belly exposed to the cool air. Not because you're careless, but because you finally can. A few days later, your sibling returns from a long patrol. You haven't seen them for nearly a week. They've changed too. Thinner, dustier, but with a sharpness in their gaze. You circle one another slowly, sniffing, not speaking. And then, without planning, you both lower your heads and press foreheads for a brief moment, then separate again. That's all. In this world, no long conversations are needed. One gesture suffices. Time starts to slide more quickly now. The days feel like echoes of themselves. Hunts, patrols, grooming, naps. The younger cubs grow, and you notice how they play the same games you once did, make the same missteps, bark the same sharp squeaks of frustration. And you're on the other side of it now, watching with the weary amusement of someone who's already fallen down those holes. Then, one evening, during a soft twilight filled with insect drone and windless calm, you find yourself alone at the edge of the den. A jackal sits watching from a safe distance. You don't chase it off, you just watch it. 2 canines, 2 survivors, and you wonder, not for the first time, what your life might have been if you were born something else, something slower, something softer. But would you trade this? This landscape that knows your scent, this rhythm that has shaped your bones, this pack that, despite the roughness, the hierarchy, the bared teeth, still circles around you like a living boundary, keeping you part of something vast and feral and real. You settle your body into the dust, tuck your paws beneath your chest, and breathe in the earth. This is your life, not chosen, but lived fully and deeply. And with each breath, you carry more of the land inside you. The wind tonight carries a different texture. Not harsh, not hot, but gentle in a way that makes the tall grass ripple like water under a silver moon. And as you lie there near the edge of your sleeping clan, the stars blinking lazily above you like the slow thoughts of old gods, you feel something unfamiliar tugging gently at your consciousness. A restlessness that isn't quite anxiety, not quite longing, but a soft, nudging curiosity about what lies beyond the invisible borders your paws have always known. You don't rise right away. Of course not. That would be hasty, and there is no room in a hyena's life for unnecessary haste. But you let the thought settle in your belly like an undigested bone. And as your tail flicks absently in the dirt, and your ears twitch toward the low sounds of your clan breathing in their sleep, you begin to imagine yourself walking further, just a little further, past the gully you never cross alone, past the dried-out riverbed with the crooked tree where the old vultures sleep, past the scent posts, past the places that smell like home, and into the wide, unclaimed unknown. And this is how it begins. Not with a challenge, not with a fight, not with a ceremony, but with a whisper in your bones that says now. Because if you are male, and let's say for this dream that you are, then your time has come to leave. Not because anyone forces you, and certainly not because you're unwelcome, but simply because that's the way of things. The unspoken tradition older than any den, older than any matriarch, older even than the stories your scent tells when rubbed into the bark of thorny trees. So you wait for morning, because departures are quieter in the daylight when the heat slows everyone down and the hunt is far behind, and the bellies are full enough to soften tempers. And when the sun finally rises pink and slow like a tired eyelid, you don't make a scene. You stand, you stretch, you walk. One of your younger cousins barks sleepily in your direction, but no one follows. because they all know, in that wordless way, that hyenas know things, that this is your path now, and it's meant to be walked alone. You don't look back, not out of pride, but because looking back would only make the leaving harder. And anyway, your scent will linger here for days, weeks even, tangled in the grass and the dust. And they'll remember you when they pass those spots where you used to lie or scratch or chew bones until the marrow wept out. And so begins your solitary wandering. The land feels wider now, strangely unfamiliar, even though it's all made of the same earth, the same thorny acacias, the same sun-blasted stones. But something about it shifts when you're alone, when the safety of the pack isn't humming just behind your shoulder blades, when the air feels just a touch too quiet, and every shadow stretches a little longer than it used to. At first, you're careful. You stick to the edges of things. You hunt smaller game, rest during the heat, keep your ears perked for the sound of padded feet that do not belong to you. You learn very quickly that the world doesn't care that you're in transition, that you're figuring yourself out, that you're alone now. Not even the vultures wait for you to grow stronger, and certainly not the leopards, who move through the trees like whispered threats. You lose weight. You limp for 3 days after a bad chase. You grow silent in a way you never were before. And slowly, through all this quiet, something begins to form inside you. Something like steel. It happens the day you find another nomadic male, older than you by several seasons, with a face that looks like it was carved out of old stone and scars that speak in stories no one will ever hear fully. And though you bark in greeting, he doesn't answer, just watches you from across a dried mud flat with eyes that are tired but still measuring. He doesn't approach, and neither do you. You eat separately. You sleep a few body lengths apart. But for 3 nights, you travel in the same direction, and that is enough. No bonds, no promises, just a rhythm. On the 4th day, he is gone. You do not follow, but you remember. You keep moving. Eventually, the landscape shifts. Fewer thorns now, more low, rolling hills, and signs of water just under the surface. And there, like a mirage at first, you catch the scent of another clan, a real one, established, powerful, female-led, of course. The matriarch's scent hits you like a sharp slap. Strong, layered, ancient. You hesitate. You circle. You observe. And when you finally show yourself, you do it the way all smart males do. Slowly, humbly, ears back, tail low. Not quite submissive, but clearly not here to steal or challenge. They don't welcome you with open paws, obviously. You're ignored at first, then tested. You're barked at by subordinates, snapped at by the juveniles, stared down by the matriarch's second in command. But you don't flinch. You just stay. You bring food sometimes. Not much, but enough to show that you're useful. You stay out of the way during meals. You groom the dirt. You wait, and after a week, maybe 2, maybe more, someone grooms you back. It's a young female, not high-ranking, not threatening, just curious. She doesn't say anything, because of course she doesn't. But her tongue flicks against your fur just once, just long enough to let you know. You exist to us now. From there, the integration is slow. You're not one of them, not really, not yet. But you're allowed to stay near the edge of the den, allowed to join on scavenging runs, allowed to lie in the shade when the heat grows thick. You never lead. You never dominate. That's not your role here. But you're no longer alone. And that, for now, is enough. The weight of loneliness lifts slowly, like mist burned off by morning sun. You find comfort in the small routines again, in the scratch of grass under your belly, in the distant whoop of a call and the answering bark from somewhere behind you, in the ache of hunger and the sweet, slow satisfaction of a full belly hard won. You are not what you once were. You are not who you will become. But here, under this vast, disinterested sky, among teeth and dust and quiet breath, you are alive. And that, in this world, is everything. You never really notice the exact moment it happens. The instant when you stop being the outsider and begin to blend, to settle, to be something more than tolerated and something slightly less than fully accepted. But over time, like water wearing into stone, the lines blur and your scent is no longer a foreign whisper on the wind, but a part of the nightly mosaic that paints the den's perimeter, mingling with the others in a story that says this one belongs, at least for now. And while you still don't eat first, and you still flinch if the matriarch passes too close, you find that the eyes watching you have softened, lost their edge, their suspicion replaced with something quieter, more habitual, something almost like trust. This new clan, this tapestry of strangers who have reluctantly allowed you into the margins of their territory, and then, slowly, into the rhythm of their lives, isn't so different from your birth clan. Not really. They move in the same ways, follow the same unspoken laws, enforce the same rigid hierarchy that structures everything from who eats when to who sleeps closest to the cool heart of the den. But the difference now lies within you, in how you carry yourself, in how you've learned to read the glances and interpret the subtle shifts in posture, to know when to defer, when to assert, and when to simply vanish into the background until tempers cool and teeth are no longer bared in your direction. There's a young female here, tall and narrow in the chest, with a distinctive notch in her left ear and a tendency to tilt her head when listening. And you find yourself drawn to her, not with the blind hunger of a lust-struck juvenile, but with something steadier, something like admiration, because she moves with an economy of effort that's mesmerizing, rarely wasting energy on displays or games, always watching, always calculating. And when she catches you staring, which happens more often than you'd like to admit, she doesn't snarl or bark or lunge. She just stares back until one day she doesn't. One cool morning, when the dew still clings stubbornly to the grass and the world feels suspended in that strange moment before the sun decides what sort of day it wants to be, you find yourself grooming her, tentatively at first, a gentle nibble at her shoulder, a cautious lick near her neck. And she lets you, doesn't move, doesn't reprimand you, just closes her eyes for a few seconds and then, without looking at you, walks away, leaving a trail of her scent in the air like an invitation that might or might not be answered. And this is how courtship works among your kind. There are no declarations, no grand rituals, no vows, just grooming, patience, and the constant navigation of rank and timing and permission. Because while you may feel something stirring inside your chest that resembles closeness, or perhaps even the early murmur of what in another species might be called affection, it all still hinges on status, and she outranks you, so you wait. You keep your head down when she passes. You bring her scraps from kills when you can. You groom her when allowed, and slowly she begins to groom you back. It's not dramatic. Nothing is ever dramatic out here unless it ends in blood. But it means something. It means that, for now, you are not entirely alone. Of course, nothing remains calm forever. The dry season creeps in slowly at first, like a thief testing a window latch. Less rain than no rain. Then the grass starts browning at the tips, and the water holes shrink until they're no longer ponds, but muddy craters. And the animals you once hunted with some degree of regularity begin disappearing deeper into the bush, or migrating entirely, leaving behind only the weak, the old, and the unlucky. Hunting becomes more desperate. Scavenging becomes more dangerous. You find yourself walking longer distances each day, covering ground so dry and cracked it whistles under your paws. The air shimmering with heat even at dawn. Tempers flare more quickly. Fights over food erupt faster, end bloodier. Your body, lean from weeks of rough travel, now begins to wear thin. Even the cubs look more gaunt than playful. And one morning, as the sun claws its way up through a dusty sky, you wake to find a lioness nosing through the edges of the den area, bold, slow, as if daring anyone to confront her. No one does, not at first. You all watch from a distance, scattered among the brush like nervous shadows, muscles coiled but still. But then, from the heart of the den, the matriarch rises, not quickly, but with the sort of authority that makes even the dry wind pause for a moment. And she walks straight toward the lioness, flanked by two of her closest females. There is no fight. The lioness watches them approach, ears flicking lazily, then turns and leaves, her tail high. Her exit casual, but her message clear. Even apex predators grow desperate during drought, and hyenas, for all their cunning and coordination, know when not to press their luck. That evening, the entire clan moves dens. It happens with shocking speed. You barely have time to blink before the elders are nudging the youngest into motion, and everyone is padding eastward, toward a cluster of low hills you've never seen up close, toward shade, toward the promise of water. You don't question it, you follow, and as the sun sets behind you, casting long shadows that reach across the plains like grasping fingers, you realize that you're no longer thinking of your old clan, or your birth den, or the way things used to be. You are here now, fully embedded in this new rhythm. No longer a wanderer, no longer a guest, but part of the pack, for better or worse. That night, curled against a warm slope with the breeze at your back and the faint smell of distant rainfall on the wind, you fall asleep before you realize how tired you are. And in your sleep, you dream, not of chasing or fighting or running, but of watching, waiting, breathing, as if your spirit has finally learned to rest. The next stretch of time, while impossible to measure precisely, because calendars mean nothing here, and days are simply tallied by the rhythms of sun and wind and how far you walk to find something still moving to chase or scavenge, passes in that strange state where you are constantly tired, but never fully resting, always alert but no longer anxious. A strange halfway existence where your muscles remember what your brain no longer needs to consciously instruct, and where your body, now hardened by dust and hunger and motion, becomes a kind of archive, storing not only scars and scents, but also the quiet understanding of what it means to persist, to belong, and eventually to influence. Because even though you are still low in the hierarchy, still groom before being groomed, still eat last when food is scarce and only slightly sooner when it's abundant, you notice the way the newer males, those awkward adolescents just entering the fringes of this clan, begin to look at you not as competition, not yet, but with that mixture of hope and uncertainty that you yourself once aimed at the older males when you were the newcomer, trying not to make a mistake big enough to get you driven out. You recognize the hesitation in their step, the way they mimic the posture of more senior members, the way they lower their eyes just a second too long, and when one of them gets too close to the food one morning and is nipped hard by a dominant female. You see the flicker of shame more than pain in his body language, and without even really thinking, you pad slowly toward him a while later. Drop a sliver of hide near his paws and move away before he can decide whether to thank you or not. Because gratitude is rare and often misunderstood in this life. And it's in moments like this, quiet and understated and gone before most of the clan even notices, that your role starts to shift. Not in title or rank, because Hyena society doesn't offer promotions to males in the traditional sense, but in presence, in weight. In the subtle way your existence now hums inside the larger pulse of this group. A reliable note that others know will be there, low and constant, when needed. Then comes the storm, not a metaphorical storm, though those are frequent enough in the minds of hyenas, but a real, tangible, sky-darkening, air-thickening tempest that rolls across the plain with the theatrical flair of a deity waking from a long nap and deciding that, yes, today is the day everything must be soaked, shaken, and reminded of its place beneath the heavens. The rain doesn't fall right away. It teases first. The sky bruises to a deep purple long before the clouds release anything. The air becomes impossibly still, as if the whole savanna is holding its breath. Birds disappear, insects vanish, and your clan, wise in the way that only animals who've survived generations of this cycle can be, moves quickly to higher ground, toward the rocky outcrop not far from the new den site, where runoff doesn't flood the burrows, and the vantage point allows you to watch the storm approach like a living beast. And when it hits not like a gentle washing, but like a drumbeat of the earth's fury. Sheets of water so thick you can barely see the hyena crouched beside you. Wind that howls in broken, chaotic notes, and lightning that dances without rhythm across the sky, illuminating the world in jagged, blinding flashes that make everything, trees, bones, eyes, appear ghost-like and surreal for a second, before plunging back into gray-black darkness. You hunker down, belly pressed flat to the soaked stone, ears pinned, eyes narrowed. No one moves. Not because they're afraid, but because to move in a storm like this is foolish. And you are no longer foolish. Hours pass. The worst of it eventually fades. The rain softens. The wind shifts from howl to hum. The clan begins to stretch, shake out, sniff each other as if confirming you all still exist. You do. You survived. And survival, as always, changes things. In the days after the storm, the land becomes something else entirely. Everything is greener, softer. The air smells of wet roots and stirred life. Insects return first, in such numbers that the cubs barely know what to do with themselves, snapping and yapping at the air as if the sky itself has become edible. Then come the herds. Zebra, wildebeest, springbok. They arrive slowly at first, in small, cautious groups, then more confidently, swelling the plains with color and sound and the rich, overwhelming scent of prey. Your clan wastes no time. You join in hunts now. Not every time, but often enough to feel the heat of the chase in your legs. To know the breathless thrill of the moment when your pack circles and drives, and the dust rises, and one wrong step from a young wildebeest means a clean takedown and a feast that will leave bellies round and blood drying on whiskers for hours. You're good at the chase, not the fastest, not the strongest, but clever. You learn how to angle, how to force prey toward ambushes, how to feint and double back. The dominant females notice. They don't say anything, but their eyes linger longer, and once, just once, one of them lets you drag a leg bone away from the kill site before the cubs have even finished chewing. It feels like a victory, a small, silent one, but a victory nonetheless. During this time, the female with the notched ear grows more distant, not cold, not hostile, just occupied, preoccupied, less present in the rhythms you used to share. You wonder if you've offended her, if perhaps your growing comfort has made you presumptuous. But then, one night she disappears, gone before dawn, no scent trail, no explanation. The matriarch isn't concerned, others aren't either. They say, in the language of glances and growls, that she's moved on, perhaps to another den, perhaps to birth, perhaps forever. You don't ask, because to ask is to reveal attachment, and attachment is risky. Instead, you wait. You focus on the pack. You do your part. You survive, and after a few weeks, on a morning thick with fog and heavy with the smell of wet fur, you catch a familiar scent on the wind. You pause, sniff again. It's faint, but unmistakable. She's returned, and she's not alone. You spot her near the edge of the den, flanked by two impossibly small, wriggling bodies. Newborns, still damp, still wide-eyed and confused by this bright, loud world. She sees you, doesn't move, but doesn't turn away either. And you, standing several body lengths away, do the only thing you can. You sit, quietly, watching, respectful, not demanding, not assuming. Just present, because in this world, presence is the greatest gift you can offer. Time will tell if she invites you back into her circle. For now, you are content to wait. The rain has passed. The grass is high again, and the world once more is alive with promise. The fog that still clings to the low hollows of the plain, even as the sun begins its slow, golden rise above the eastern ridge, seems to wrap around the moment like a blanket holding in something tender, something unspoken. And as you sit there at a respectful distance from the returning female and her newborn cubs, so impossibly tiny that their paws still fumble when they try to walk, their eyes not yet sharp enough to fully register you, you feel the kind of stillness that's rare in your life, the kind that isn't about hiding or resting or waiting, but simply about being, about letting yourself exist without chasing or escaping, fighting or submitting, just breathing in the wet air and letting the dawn do its work. She doesn't come closer, not on that first day or the second, but she doesn't chase you off either, doesn't bare her teeth or curl her lip in warning. And that, in this world of subtle social cues and invisible lines drawn in dust and bone, means something important. Something that says, I see you, and I remember. And so you remain nearby, not hovering, not watching every move, but always within sight, always letting your scent drift gently toward her den like a quiet message with no pressure behind it. The cubs grow quickly, as they always do in the wild, where childhood is less a season and more a fleeting shimmer on the surface of survival. And before long, they are venturing out in awkward hops, yipping at shadows, biting each other's ears, toppling into shallow puddles left over from the last rain. And then, one morning, one of them stumbles straight into your paw, sniffing you with the intense seriousness of a creature discovering the world one scent at a time. And you freeze, unsure whether to nudge it back or remain perfectly still, afraid to shatter whatever tentative trust this tiny bundle of fur and potential has decided to place in you. She watches, of course. Their mother, well, whatever word fits now. You meet her gaze and hold it. And in the space between you, thicker than fog, deeper than sound, there's an understanding, a silent acknowledgement that you've both walked far, endured much, and now exist in a shared chapter that neither of you expected, but neither of you rejects. Eventually, the cub totters back to her, and she licks it absently, never breaking eye contact with you. That night, you sleep closer to her den than you ever have before. Not beside her, not yet, but near enough to hear the soft breathing of the cubs and the quiet, contented hum she makes when grooming them. A low, rhythmic sound that sinks into the earth and wraps itself around your spine like warmth in the bones. The dry season is over. For now, the storms have left behind new grass, fat insects, swollen frogs that sing through the night, and prey that returns to graze on the abundance like nothing bad has ever happened. Like teeth were never involved. Like blood was never spilled under the same moon they now bask beneath. And with food comes peace, or at least a version of peace. The hyena kind, where disputes are fewer, hunts more successful, and the mood of the clan shifts from brittle and sharp to something more fluid, more tolerant, almost playful. You find yourself relaxing in ways you hadn't realized you needed. You play chase the cubs when they're bold enough to tug your tail. You share a kill with a younger male without growling once. You even doze in the sun, belly exposed, paws twitching as you dream of running. Not away from something, but toward something bright and warm and just out of reach. The female with the notched ear, your companion, your mystery, your anchor, begins to walk beside you more often. Not always with purpose, sometimes just drifting your way during a scouting run, or padding near you during shade-seeking migrations between territories. And while no one in the clan comments on this shift, they all notice it. Because in hyena society, nothing is ever said outright unless it needs to be said. And right now, nothing needs to be said. You are, for the first time in your life, not surviving, not strategizing, but simply living. And though you know better than to trust the permanence of anything in this world, you allow yourself to enjoy it. And then one morning, just after dawn, a sound breaks the calm. Not a roar or a bark or even a cry. Just a strange, low rhythm of paws against dirt, coming fast from the south. A rival clan. You don't need to be told. The scent hits you next. A pungent, unfamiliar signature soaked in aggression. Foreign males, new females, a matriarch whose musk practically shouts ambition into the wind. Everyone in your clan stiffens. The air becomes razor sharp. The matriarch, old now, her muzzle going silver, her body leaner than it used to be, gives a single, sharp whoop, and the clan moves. Not in panic, in formation. You've never seen them like this. Organized, rehearsed, as if some ancient memory has been activated by scent alone. You follow, of course. You know your place. Stay close to the cubs. Guard the burrows. Flank, but don't lead. The rival clan doesn't attack outright. They circle, posture, send scouts forward, leave scent marks that burn the nose. But the message is clear. They're testing you, probing your numbers, your strength, looking for a weakness. For days, the tension holds like stretched sinew. Every movement, every growl, every meal shadowed by the possibility of blood. You sleep less, eat less, listen more. The female stays close to her cubs. And you, now fully part of her story, of their story, guard the area like it's your first duty, which it is. And when one of the foreign males gets too close, you don't hesitate. You lunge, you snap, you bite, you draw blood, he runs. You're limping afterward, of course. You always are these days. But you're not ashamed of it, because that limp is proof that you stood between danger and something worth protecting. Eventually, the rival clan withdraws, not in defeat, but in calculation, deciding that your clan isn't weak enough yet, that it's not worth the losses, not this season, not with their matriarch pregnant and their young, still growing teeth. Peace returns, but it wears a different face now. It's more cautious, quieter. The cubs stay closer to the den. The hunting parties are larger. The matriarch watches everything with a deeper silence, her old eyes calculating, waiting for the next sign of change. You've earned your place, not through dominance or bravado, but through time, through patience, through small acts that, stacked together, have formed something solid, something unshakable. And as you watch the sun set one evening, its orange light washing the savannah in soft gold, the female pads over, sits beside you, her shoulder brushing yours. Neither of you speak, of course not, but for a long time, you both sit there, breathing in the cooling air, listening to the wind stir the tall grass, and knowing, in your bones, that whatever comes next, you'll face it side by side. The days stretch out in a kind of languid, sun-drenched rhythm now, where time no longer feels like something measured by fear or urgency, or the echo of distant howls, but instead folds gently into itself, like the contours of a well-worn path, trodden by generations of paws before you. And it is in this softer phase of your life, this quiet middle chapter where adrenaline no longer rules every moment, and where the weight of survival no longer presses so tightly against your ribs, that something unexpected begins to blossom. A flutter of confusion, a ripple of instinct, a strange, fluttering preoccupation with another presence in the clan that is not about rivalry or alliance or even respect, but something warmer, fuzzier, and undeniably ridiculous. It begins, of course, with her eyes, not the notched ear female, who by now is a settled, steady figure in your life, the gravity around which your days orbit, but a different one, younger, rangier, her spots darker, her gait less practiced but somehow mesmerizing. The way she moves like she's listening to a rhythm only she can hear, twitching her ears to some private music that seems far more interesting than whatever the rest of the clan is doing. And you, for reasons you don't immediately understand, find yourself watching her a bit too long one morning when she yawns in the dappled shade near the carcass pile, her tongue curling, her eyes half-lidded in that sleepy way that makes it seem as if she's too cool to care about anything, including your obvious, awkward staring. You're not alone in noticing her, of course. Males always notice the new adult females, and she, in particular, draws a certain kind of attention, not just because of her youth or the shine of her coat, but because she seems to float just slightly outside the social rules. nudging lines, teasing norms, stepping close to the matriarch without groveling too deeply, laughing too loud when older males try their clumsy tricks, trotting away before they finish their posturing. And so begins the ridiculous, earnest, humiliatingly awkward dance of hyena courtship, if it can even be called that. Because unlike the soft serenades of songbirds or the elaborate displays of peacocks, hyena flirtation is more about subtle signals, weird noises, poorly timed sniffs, and the occasional bout of mutual butt-biting that somehow manages to be both romantic and undignified. You try your best. You really do. One afternoon, while scavenging with the clan near a collapsed warthog burrow, you find a particularly interesting bone, a twisted piece of antelope femur still holding the ghost of its marrow. And after chewing on it a bit, you carry it near where she's lounging and, in a gesture that feels both bold and absurd, drop it beside her paws with all the ceremony of a king presenting a jewel. She looks at it, then looks at you, then picks it up and walks away without a word, dragging it to the far side of the clearing, flops onto her side, and chews it with such focused indifference that you aren't sure whether you've just been accepted, rejected, or placed on a waiting list. The notched ear female sees all of this, of course. She sees everything. But she doesn't interfere. Instead, she watches with that tired amusement that comes only from having long ago outgrown the phase where feelings make you stupid. And as you limp past her later that evening, still unsure whether your bone offering was a triumph or a disaster, she flicks her tail once and snorts quietly, as if to say, "You poor, sweet idiot." Still, something shifts. You begin spending more time near the new female, not crowding her, not chasing her, but finding excuses to forage nearby, to run parallel on scouting routes, to rest beneath the same tree, a few body lengths away, pretending not to watch her watching you. She tolerates it, sometimes even bumps into you on purpose. Once, she growls at you while you're eating, then steals a scrap of hide and runs, and you chase her, not to fight, but just to follow, and you tumble together in the tall grass, a chaotic blur of paws and laughter and mock growls that leaves you both panting, eyes bright, the taste of joy sharp and strange on your tongue, and slowly, tentatively, something like a bond begins to form. Not a bond in the human sense, not exclusive, not romantic in the scripted way of movies or fairy tales, but real in the only way it can be in this world. Shared meals, shared warmth during the colder nights, shared glances during tense moments when danger prowls the perimeter. You're older than her. You know this. She knows it too. You limp more than you used to. Your coat is duller, your face more scarred, but you are steady, kind, and in a world that rarely offers either, that matters. So when the dry season begins again, when the water holes shrink and the grasses fade and the prey becomes harder to find and tempers grow short among the clan, she stays near you. Not always, not clingy, but close enough that your paths continue to tangle, continue to thread the same roots. And one day, while sharing the shade beneath an acacia tree, she rests her chin on your back and closes her eyes. And you feel a stillness settle over you that has nothing to do with exhaustion and everything to do with peace. Of course, peace never lasts long out here. You wake one morning to the smell of blood, not fresh, not from a hunt, old blood, clotted, sticky, reeking of pain. A younger male, The same one who used to trail you like a shadow a few seasons back, lies torn near the edge of the territory line, his flank ripped open by something too strong to be a jackal and too silent to be a lion. The clan gathers, sniffs, grunts, warns, a leopard maybe, or worse, a rogue hyena, exiled and desperate. The tension returns, old instincts resurface. You become more vigilant, so does she. You patrol more often, sleep less, walk longer distances with aching limbs that don't recover like they used to. But still, every night she curls beside you, and every morning you rise and face the day together. There's no ceremony, no declarations, but when she begins to swell at the belly, when her gait becomes slower, her breath heavier, no one is surprised. And when she retreats to the den site, choosing a hollow far enough from the others to be quiet, but not so far as to be alone, you follow, keeping watch, standing guard, not entering, but always near. She gives birth in the early hours of a cloudy morning, when the air is still and the earth smells of damp grass and ghost rain. You hear the soft yips before you see them. 2 cubs, healthy, strong, black as night. You do not enter the den. You do not need to. She emerges a day later, tired but proud. And the way she looks at you, steady, unblinking, with something almost tender in her expression, tells you everything you need to know. You are part of their story now, not just hers, not just the clan's, but theirs. And as the cubs grow, you remain close. Not a father in the human sense, because hyenas don't do fatherhood the way humans imagine it, but a presence, a constant, a protector. You let them climb you, bite your ears, steal your food. You teach them to listen, to sniff, to play. And though your bones ache and your eyes blur at dusk more than they used to, you feel, somehow, stronger than ever. Not in your muscles, not in your teeth, but in your place, your purpose. And in this strange, dusty, unpredictable world of tooth and bone and laughter and fear, that is more than enough. It happens fast, as it often does. Not with the grand, theatrical drama that you might expect after seasons of quiet bonding and peaceful, sun-dappled routines, but with a sharp sound, a blur of dust, a kick that lands so swiftly and violently that for several seconds you don't even feel the pain. Only a curious floating sensation, as if your legs have briefly forgotten what gravity is supposed to feel like. And then you're down, breath knocked clean out of your chest, ribs screaming, your vision swimming not with tears, but with confusion. Your body writhing in a mix of panic and disbelief as you try to remember which direction you were even facing when the zebra's back leg caught you square across the left flank, sending you spinning through the brittle underbrush like a broken kite cut from its string. The kill had been going well, at least until that moment. A young zebra separated from the herd during one of those chaotic dusk scrambles when the plains turn orange and the long shadows play tricks on the prey's instincts. And you, still hungry for meat, still proud enough to contribute, had joined the hunting party despite the stiffness in your hips and the weariness that had been coiling around your shoulders for weeks like a slow vine. One of those hunts where you tell yourself, just this once more, as if age can be tricked by determination, as if experience can outpace biology. But the zebra was faster than you expected. You were a second too slow, a little too close to the wrong angle, and it didn't miss. Now you lie there in the aftermath, curled awkwardly in the grass, trying to rise but failing, your rear leg numb, your side already swelling with deep bruises that pulse beneath your skin like living things. And the clan, bless them, does not abandon you, though they do not coddle either. The kill goes on, as it must, and others step in to finish the chase, their yips and growls fading as they move further toward the tree line where the zebra has finally faltered. You're not dying, not yet, not exactly. But you're not okay either, and you know it. The days that follow blur into each other. You limp, mostly dragging that leg now, using only 3 limbs to move and letting the 4th hang limply, like a broken branch unwilling to fall. The wound isn't open, but it's deep, internal, one of those slow injuries that doesn't bleed but steals from you anyway. Mobility, speed, confidence. You can't hunt. You can barely follow the clan on patrol. You start to fall behind. And though no one says anything, because hyenas, for all their harshness, are rarely cruel without reason, you feel the shift, the soft but undeniable shift in how you are viewed. You're no longer the dependable scout, the brave defender, the wiry protector of cubs and mothers. You're the one who rests more, moves slower, takes longer to get up in the morning, and you catch the sideways glances from the younger males, those new arrivals full of ambition and untarnished muscle, the ones who see in you not threat, but cautionary tale. The notched ear female visits you sometimes, though her own pace has slowed too, her muzzle now dusted with white, her breathing heavier in the heat. And together you rest in the shade like 2 old ghosts watching the world you once dominated pass you by with a kind of bittersweet grace. She doesn't speak. Of course not. You never did. But she lays beside you in silence, her body curled close enough to feel but not smother. And in that closeness you find comfort that no words could ever deliver. The young mother too, the one who once stole your bone and laughed with her eyes. She visits less frequently now, busy with her cubs and with staying in the good graces of the current matriarch, who is not your former partner, but the daughter of the old one, a sharp-eyed, fast-rising leader whose ambitions pulse like heat waves off the savannah floor. You don't begrudge her this distance. She's doing what she must. You did the same once. Still, it stings. That slow fade from relevance. One night, while the others are off patrolling, you lie alone under the stars, the pain in your hip keeping you awake. And for the first time in a long time, you let yourself think not of the next kill or the next chase or the next duty, but of the beginning, of that dark, warm den, the squirming body of your sibling beside you, the milk-scented fur of your mother, the press of earth all around, the way the world smelled before you knew how much of it was teeth and bone and breath held tight in fear. It's a strange sort of peace, this memory, like a circle beginning to close. In the following weeks, you adjust. You stop trying to join the hunts altogether. Instead, you linger near the dens, offer grunts of encouragement to the pups, tolerate their games even when they nip too hard or pounce your sore hip. And though you don't say it, you know what you're doing, passing down knowledge, presence, the sense that even those who can no longer run fast can still matter. One afternoon, while dozing beneath a fig tree whose roots rise like tangled snakes from the dry earth, a young male, barely out of adolescence, his spots still sharp, his body still lean, approaches you and lies down not beside you, but near, close enough to signal respect, but far enough not to intrude. And you understand what this is. a moment of silent learning, of observation, of honoring an elder without ceremony. You don't move, you don't speak, but you see him glance your way more than once, and you catch him mimicking your head tilt when a bird calls nearby. And you feel, perhaps for the first time in months, something like pride swell in your chest. You are not useless. You are a library with a limp. The world grows hotter again. The rains delay. Waterholes shrink. Tensions rise. Fights become more frequent, quicker to ignite, slower to resolve. You stay out of them. Let the younger ones burn their energy, test their teeth. You have nothing to prove now, only stories to carry and aches to count. The female with the cubs, the one who once flirted and now rules her part of the den site with the weary wisdom of someone who's seen enough, comes to you one night and curls beside you without a word, just for a while, and you both stare up at the stars, which seem brighter this season, almost sharp against the dark. She doesn't speak. You don't ask her to. Her cubs are grown now, nearly adult, already jostling for place. Their laughter starting to carry that lower pitch that means maturity is knocking. And she has other things to do, other paths to walk, but still she came. That means something. You know your days are fewer now, not because you're sick, not yet, but because your bones creak louder than ever. Your breath comes shorter in the heat, and your dreams have started shifting, returning you to places you thought forgotten. Old hunts, lost friends, den sites that no longer exist except in the folds of your memory. You are not afraid. You are not clinging, but you are remembering, and in remembering, you are preparing. Because even hyenas, the cackling, snarling, unstoppable creatures of the night, must eventually slow down, must one day lie in the grass and not rise again. Not as a defeat, but as a closing chapter. One well-written, well-lived, full of meaning, even if nobody carved it into stone. You don't want ceremony. You don't want howls or vigils or mourning. You just want to lie somewhere warm, somewhere shaded, somewhere familiar. And to know that, even when your body stills, the stories you carried, the moments you shared, the cubs you tolerated and taught and loved in your own strange way, those things will ripple forward, quietly, steadily, forever. It is during a season of uncertain weather, a liminal stretch between the end of the dry months and the reluctant beginning of the rains, when clouds gather like gossiping old women and the air feels heavy with secrets, that you find yourself wandering farther than usual, not because you mean to stray from the clan or because you're seeking anything in particular, but because your paws seem to carry you of their own will, nudging you along old trails that only your muscles remember, routes from a youth you'd nearly forgotten, paths worn thin by the passing of time and the passage of so many paws before yours and after yours, until the savannah itself feels like a vast, breathing memory. You aren't running away. That would require the energy of anger or fear, and you have neither in excess anymore. You are simply walking. Your limp is worse these days, more of a dragging hobble now than the confident lope you once had, and your left shoulder carries most of the weight your back leg refuses to bear. But you move steadily, if slowly, with the rhythm of someone who has made peace with pain, whose body has become a weather vane for every subtle change in wind, temperature, and time. The clan does not stop you. They notice, yes, of course they do. But hyenas are not creatures of ceremony, and departures, especially those that happen slowly and without drama, are rarely challenged. The notched ear female watches you go with her head tilted slightly to one side, her eyes reflecting the pink haze of morning light. And although she does not follow, you know she understands, perhaps even better than you do, that this is not the beginning of something new, but the soft tapering of something old. The world beyond the den site feels both familiar and strange, as though the land itself has changed subtly since you last traveled these trails with purpose. The termite mounds are taller than you remember, the scent markers fainter, overwritten by other creatures, other clans. And yet the air still carries that heady perfume of dust, grass, dung, and sun. A scent that speaks of everything you've ever known, layered like notes in a song that only hyenas truly hear. You pass an old tree, its bark stripped bare by elephants long gone, and you remember crouching there in the shade one blistering day as a cub, panting, belly full, your siblings still alive then. The two of you laughing with your mouths open, your teeth barely grown in, pretending to be fierce in the way only children can pretend. And for a moment, the memory is so vivid, so sharp, that you expect to hear their yip beside you, to feel the nudge of their shoulder against yours, to catch their scent carried on the breeze. But of course they are not there. They haven't been for many seasons. Still, the memory walks with you, padding silently alongside, keeping pace. As you press onward, you come upon the bones, not new, bleached white, scattered like spilled teeth across a patch of dry ground where vultures once held counsel. And though you do not sniff them long or prod them for clues, you pause there, acknowledging them in the quiet way of animals who know that death is never far, never cruel, just part of the rhythm of things. A rhythm older than words and kinder than humans give it credit for. You don't feel fear, you feel recognition, respect. Eventually, you reach a ridge, a gentle rise in the land from which the earth unfolds in all directions, like a slow exhale. The grasslands rippling toward the horizon. The sky above stretched wide and pale, like the inside of an old drum. And you lie there, breathing deeply, your body aching but content, your ears twitching at the distant sounds of life, the low rumble of wildebeest, the high chirp of birds that never seem to sleep, the occasional bark of a jackal pretending to be important. You drift, not into sleep exactly, but into that soft, suspended state where your thoughts move like clouds, slow and shapeless, where your awareness becomes porous, letting in sensations without urgency, heat on your flank, wind in your fur, the throb of your hip fading into background noise, and time loses its sharpness, rounding out into something more like a hum, something less precise and more profound. A young giraffe passes not far off, legs impossibly thin, moving like a puppet whose strings are tugged by wind. And you watch it with mild amusement, remembering your first attempt to chase one, how you'd slipped in the mud, how your pride had been bruised more than your ribs, how the others had laughed, including the notched ear female, who never let you forget it for weeks afterward. So many moments, so many stories. You wonder, as the sun dips lower in the sky, how many of them will be remembered, not by name, not by detail, but as vibrations, as scents, as instincts passed from mother to cub in licks and grunts and stares. Maybe one of the young males who used to mimic your head tilt now mimics your stillness, your restraint, your way of waiting instead of charging. And maybe that too is memory. passed not through language but through posture and presence. Your thoughts turn, briefly, to the female who once curled against you during cold nights, to her cubs, now likely grown, snarling, swaggering, eyeing leadership the way fire eyes dry grass. And you smile, not in mockery or bitterness, but in quiet, sleepy satisfaction, knowing you were a thread in their beginning, a small but sturdy knot in the vast, tangled web of their lives. A bird lands nearby, bright blue, hopping along a fallen branch, as if trying to compose a speech, then taking off again with a whistle that cuts clean through the air. You envy its ease, not its wings, not its freedom, just its simplicity. You shift slightly. The pain returns, dull but insistent. You're used to it. It's almost a comfort now, like an old companion who's overstayed their welcome but knows all your jokes. You rest your head on your paws. Your breathing slows. The wind picks up. A light drizzle begins to fall, the kind that doesn't soak but blesses, and each drop feels like a tiny, cool whisper against your fur, murmuring things you no longer need to translate. You do not plan to rise. Not tonight. Perhaps not tomorrow. The land can cradle you now. The same earth that bore your weight when you were new, reckless, full of bite and cackle, will take you back without fuss, without ceremony, letting you melt into it like a dropped shadow. There is no final roar, no epic last stand, just a long breath out and stillness. But not loneliness, because even now, far from the den, you are not alone. The wind knows you, the land remembers you, and somewhere, back near the heart of the clan, a young hyena curls in the dirt and dreams of a tree where bones are scattered like treasure, and of an old figure resting, waiting, watching. And so the circle folds in, quietly, gently, inevitably. The clan has shifted, as it always does. But this time the change is not subtle, not the kind that sneaks in through the quiet cracks of time, but loud, undeniable, and soaked in the scent of endings and beginnings braided together like fresh scars across the savanna floor. Your mother, once the unchallenged matriarch, the center of the social wheel, the rock around which all others balanced themselves, is gone, not in a blaze of battle or a slow decline in the shade, but in the way that great trees sometimes fall silently in the night, their presence missing only when the dawn breaks and light pours through a space that was never empty before. Her death is not dramatic, not even witnessed, really. She goes down somewhere near the far watering hole, a place she rarely visited in recent seasons. Her body found later by two young males who had gone sniffing for wildebeest scent trails, and instead returned to the den with a quiet urgency, the kind that spreads quickly through the ranks without words, the way thunderstorms announce themselves to the skin long before they darken the sky. And though no wails rise, no lamentations echo through the plains, because hyenas are not mourners in the human sense, not singers of dirges or builders of graves. There is a stillness, a flattening of noise that lasts for a time, a collective hesitation, as if every member of the clan must recalibrate themselves against the new gravitational center of their world, must pause and feel the empty place where once there had been a pulse, a presence, a matriarch. You feel it more deeply than most, not just because she was your mother, not just because her scent was the first one that ever meant safety to you, or because her growl had once scared off a leopard that dared to get too close to your sleeping form, but because you knew her before she was her, before she was the one, back when she was just another snarling youth trying to find her place among a jungle of jaws and judgments. The shift that follows her death is swift. Leadership, like meat, does not linger long on the ground. Her eldest daughter, sharp, swift, already respected by the younger ranks, steps into the void without fanfare, but with undeniable certainty. And the others fall in behind her with the kind of speed that only comes when everyone already knew what the next step would be, even if they hadn't spoken it aloud. There is no coronation, only gestures. Who gets to eat first? Who snarls and is obeyed? Who looks sideways and is corrected? You are not part of this new order. Not exactly cast out, but not essential either. You are a relic now, still tolerated, still greeted, still occasionally groomed by the odd adolescent seeking favor or wisdom. But you are no longer asked to make decisions, no longer expected to join hunts or stand guard at dusk or discipline unruly cubs with a curled lip and a narrowed eye. Instead, you watch, from the edges, from the shade, and you remember. You remember how your mother had first risen, not with violence, but with timing, with an uncanny ability to be exactly where strength was needed, to fight only the battles worth winning, and to retreat from those that offered no spoils but bruises and grudges. You remember the fights she didn't pick, the bones she didn't gnaw, the patience she showed when others would have bitten, and now you see some of that in her daughter, the new leader. Though less tempered, perhaps, more eager, less burdened by the weight of hard-won wisdom. But still, the echoes are there, in her posture, in the way she circles the clan before dusk like a storm cloud taking inventory of the land. One morning, the new matriarch approaches you, not with teeth or challenge, but with that slow, deliberate step that means she has come not as a superior, but as kin. And she lowers her head slightly, not quite a bow, but a gesture of acknowledgement, of lineage, of old bones still worth respecting. She says nothing. Neither do you. There's no need. The gesture says enough. I remember who you were. I know what you've seen. I know whose blood hums beneath your skin, and though you don't join her circle, don't share her path, that moment stitches you into the fabric of the clan once more. Not as a leader, not as a force, but as a thread too old to pull and too sacred to cut. You begin to spend more time with the pups again, not because you're assigned, but because you're drawn. Their chaos, their squeals, their endless wrestling matches fill the air like music, like laughter in a house that once echoed with silence. And though they treat you at first as an obstacle, a lumpy inconvenience to climb on or hide behind, eventually they begin to gravitate towards you with more curiosity, perhaps sensing the stories folded deep into your fur, stories their mothers won't tell, not because they don't care, but because they haven't lived them yet. One evening, a particularly bold cub, spotted like firelight on wet stone, with ears too big for her head and a grin that stretches across her entire face, climbs onto your back while you're dozing and refuses to get off, chattering at you in that hybrid language of squeaks and growls and chirps that only pups can truly understand. And instead of snarling or shaking her loose, you simply sigh, stretch out farther, and let her make a nest of your shoulder. It is not the most dignified moment of your life, but it may be one of the most important. Because through it, she learns that strength can also look like softness, that power does not always bare its teeth, that even the fiercest jaws one day become pillows for the next generation. Time, that strange and indifferent river, flows on, The rains return. So does the mud. So do the flies. You stop keeping track of the moons. You let the days bleed into one another like the scent trails of your youth, all overlapping, all familiar, all leading home. The new matriarch leads well, firm, fair, occasionally ruthless, but never reckless. Under her watch, the clan grows stronger, numbers swell, and the den site echoes again with the sounds of life. Cubs yipping, mothers chuffing, bones crunching beneath practiced jaws. And though you play no role in these victories, though you sit off to the side during feasts and doze through the meetings that happen with snarls and nudges and tail twitches, you feel the satisfaction settle into your bones like warmth, like firelight under your skin. Because this is what survival looks like. This is what legacy feels like. Not a throne, not a monument, not a name remembered in tales, but a breath passed from one set of lungs to the next. You no longer chase. You no longer run. Sometimes you don't even walk, but you are here, still, and that is enough. Because you have witnessed the turning of the wheel, and more importantly, you have helped shape it. By now, the seasons blur together. Not because they lack distinction. You still feel the way the dry season carves the savanna into a brittle puzzle of dust and silence. Just as you still welcome the rains when they return like forgotten laughter, softening everything they touch. But because the urgency that once sharpened every change, that once made every shift in scent or wind direction a call to action, no longer stirs in your limbs with the same insistence, no longer tugs at you like it used to when your muscles were younger and your hunger more demanding. When each morning meant a hunt, a challenge, a sprint toward survival or satisfaction or both. And each night meant patrols, confrontations, negotiations through snarls and posturing. All of it done with the energy of someone who still believed that their position in the world was theirs to win or lose. Now, instead, you find yourself embracing stillness in a way that once might have felt like failure, but which now feels like mastery. You nap more, and not the kind of sleep that follows exhaustion, not the collapse of a body too tired to stand, but the languid, luxurious sort of rest that comes from knowing nothing truly urgent is demanding your attention, and that even if it were, someone younger, faster, louder would take care of it first. You choose your spots with the wisdom of experience, tucking yourself beneath low shrubs where the breeze is steady but not strong, where shade drips like syrup through branches, and where you can watch without being watched. You are no longer part of the clan's moving core, no longer among the ranks that follow the matriarch's lead on daily rounds. But you are not forgotten either. The pups still seek you out when they are brave or bored, sometimes to sniff at your tail or climb across your back, sometimes to lie beside you in silence, as if they too understand the kind of calm you carry, the deep, slow rhythm of someone who has seen enough, done enough, and now simply is. There is a freedom in this slow aging that few speak of, a quiet unburdening that creeps in unnoticed, and then one day announces itself, not with a roar, but with the realization that you no longer have to prove anything to anyone, no longer need to stake your claim at the kill or snarl for dominance at the den, no longer need to chase or challenge or correct. Your stories, after all, have already been told, not just in the scars along your flanks or the notches in your ears, but in the way others mimic your posture, repeat your paths, carry your scent faintly in their fur. And so you watch. You watch the new generation stumble their way into strength, tripping over the same roots you once did, wrestling with the same insecurities and ambitions, barking too loudly, too soon, and learning, sometimes the hard way, that confidence is not the same thing as power, and that sometimes silence can roar louder than any snarl. You watch the matriarch, your niece technically, though titles like that don't carry weight in the clan, navigate the weight of leadership with a grace that is not always elegant, but always effective. You see her discipline where needed, comfort when possible, and ignore what must be ignored. And though her ways are different from your mother's, and her temperament less patient, you cannot help but admire the way she holds the center of things together with her sheer presence, the way she stands still and makes others move around her, the way her shadow stretches longer than her body when the sun sets. Food comes, as it always does, sometimes in great feasts dragged back from a zebra or impala carcass, sometimes in dry bones picked clean after jackals have had their turn. But you are never left out, never forgotten. And even though you no longer lunge forward when the meat hits the ground, there is always a sliver saved, a chunk nudged towards you by a younger hyena pretending not to look at you, as if the act of kindness should go unnoticed, unspoken. You've become a presence more than a participant, a witness, a reminder, and oddly a comfort. The others sleep closer to you now than they once did, not huddled as cubs do, but within a respectful distance, as though your very being casts a kind of warmth, a kind of peace that they want to share in even if they don't quite understand it. And when you groom, which is less frequent now, your tongue slower, your neck stiffer, others sometimes groom you back, not just out of respect, but out of affection, out of that strange and wordless bond that ties hyenas to one another, not just through blood or rank, but through time. You no longer dream as vividly as you once did. Your nights are mostly quiet now, filled with the soft huff of your own breathing and the distant sounds of a world you no longer chase. The thump of hooves, the howl of distant dogs, the whir of insects painting invisible patterns across the air. But when you do dream, it is of simple things. Mud cooling your paws, a bird's shadow crossing your path, your mother's eyes the first time she let you venture beyond the den entrance, and the way her body blocked the wind so you wouldn't shiver. And sometimes you wake with a sound in your throat, not quite a laugh, not quite a sigh, but something in between, something that might, in another life, have been a prayer. One morning, after a night of steady rain that softened the world and washed the savannah into something tender and new, you rise slower than usual, your joints murmuring objections, your lungs needing 2 deep breaths before they agree to work properly. And you walk not far, just to a small rise beyond the densite, a place where grass grows a little greener and where the breeze always carries the scent of things you can't quite name. You lie down there. You stay for a long time. You watch. The world goes on, and you feel something inside you loosen, not in a frightening way, not like falling, but like surrendering a weight you didn't know you'd been carrying, like releasing a breath you've been holding since you were small enough to fit beneath your mother's belly. There is no fear, only readiness, only rest. And as the sun rises, soft, orange, stretching its limbs across the sky like a lazy cub, you close your eyes and feel the warmth spread across your face, across your chest, across the long, long years that led you here. You are old, you are tired, but you are full, you are complete, and you are home. You don't feel it at first. Not as a jolt, not as a pang, not even as a distinct sensation, but rather as a soft thinning, a slow dissolving of the border between your body and the earth beneath you. A quiet awareness that something, somewhere, has begun to loosen, to unlace, to slip free of the seams it has nestled in for so long. And the oddest part is how unalarming it all is, how peacefully your awareness drifts, not in alarm or regret or resistance, but in something that feels curiously like curiosity itself, as if you are not ending but finally understanding. Your breathing has slowed, not because you are in pain or frightened, but because there's simply less need for breath. As though the air has become so thick with memory, so full of all the things you've already tasted and known and chased, that inhaling now is less about necessity and more about savoring, about gently holding on to the last golden molecules of a life lived long and loud and wild. The sun above, filtered through the tall, dry grasses and flickering tree shadows, no longer feels like it's beating down or trying to burn or mark or energize you. It simply exists now, like you do, warm and content and unconcerned with schedules or hunts or hierarchies. Just a glowing companion in your final waking moments. Around you the world hums, not the kind of hum that demands attention or threatens change, but the low, constant vibration of everything being just as it should be. A beetle scraping its way under a leaf, the rustle of a distant bird taking off from a perch, the occasional soft murmur of another hyena somewhere back near the den site, too far to reach you quickly, but near enough that you do not feel alone, never truly alone. Not in this final chapter. You shift slightly, less a movement and more a yielding, a gentle surrendering of weight from bone to dust, and your paw rests over your muzzle in a posture you once used when you were young and bashful, playing at sleep in front of the matriarchs, hoping they wouldn't notice how alert your eyes still were. This time, though, your eyes are half-lidded not from performance, but from contentment. And the wind that tickles your whiskers carries not the scent of danger or prey, but of old acacia bark, dry elephant dung, and a sweetness you haven't smelled since your very first season. The scent of a particular patch of blooming yellow ground flowers that only open when the soil is just wet enough after the rain. Somewhere in your body, an old ache eases, a tightness unwinds, and you remember. You remember the first time you saw the stars, truly saw them, without the blur of fear or hunger, how they seemed to lean in close just for you, glittering with gossip and ancient stories and long-lost relatives watching from above. You remember the chase, the good one, the one that ended not in a meal but in laughter, in 5 pups rolling through mud and thorns and forgetting the rules of dominance just long enough to let friendships sneak in. You remember your mother's tongue rasping behind your ear, not grooming but grounding, anchoring your tiny, trembling body to the reality of your clan, your blood, your inheritance. And as each memory rises, it doesn't distract or disturb. It blends. It melts into the present like twilight slipping into night. Each recollection folding gently into the soft dark that now gathers at the edges of your vision. Time in this moment has no edges. There is no yesterday, no next hour, no hunger or worry or hope. There is only now, and it is quiet, and it is enough. You are no longer afraid. not of death, not of absence, not of being forgotten. Because you know, in that deep, marrow-level way that only the old truly understand, that stories live on in the way paws step, in the way heads are tilted, in the angle of a stare or the sound of a laugh. You know that you will linger in the clan not as a ghost or a whisper, but as a habit, a choice, a certain curve in the path that others will follow without knowing why. And so you stay there, beneath the acacia, while the wind combs gently through your thinning fur and the clouds above drift lazily across the sky like herds with nowhere in particular to be. Your chest rises, then falls, and then it doesn't rise again. But the world continues, not out of indifference, but in reverence. A beetle inches by your paw. A young pup, chasing a butterfly, pauses nearby and looks at you, puzzled, sniffing once before bounding away again, unaware of what they've just seen, what they've just lost, and what, in time, they might become. The sky darkens with the coming night. Somewhere, someone calls. Not loudly, not urgently, just a call. A call that feels like home. And now, as the final notes of your long journey drift away, like dust stirred by a lazy breeze, let the world quiet itself a little more. For your sake, for your rest, for the memory of all that has passed through you, over you, and within you. The savannah exhales slowly, dusk pulling a deep violet blanket across the horizon, and the stars, one by one, begin to blink their sleepy eyes open, as if resuming an old vigil they've held since the very first creatures blinked awake beneath their glow. You've traveled far, not just across lands or through seasons, but across stages of life that were filled with grit and growth, with laughter low in your throat and the occasional quiet tear shed in solitude, hidden from the others. Your bones have carried stories, and those stories now settle soft and warm into the soil that cradles you. There is no rush here, no need to move or remember or even to hope. All that needed to unfold has done so, gently, patiently, like petals opening in the dark. So breathe, even if only in memory. Let the wind thread through your fur one final time. Let the quiet hum of the grasslands soothe you as it once did when you were small, cradled beneath your mother's flank, shielded from all that the world demanded. You are part of it now, forever. Not gone, just folded into something older, wider, and endlessly calm. Rest, dear one. The night is long and kind and soft, and you are safe.